Welcome to the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me as always is my Bumble co-host, Kyle JCRB Krause.
Don't adjust the audio. Your speeds aren't off or anything. Ian's just he's recovering from being a bit under the weather, so
I'm coming off of like a 4-day flu, but I can actually talk today. And that's a good thing, because we have a special guest episode. Please welcome Ashster to the BumbleKast.
Welcome.
Hello there, everyone. It's your boy Ashster here, or just call me Ash. It's fine. Ashster's more of an I don't know, it's the name of my channel on YouTube and my Twitter. But you can just call me Ash. It's fine. It's not actually my true name though. It's more of a pseudonym. I'm not actually from like an English-speaking country, so I just kind of use Ash. It's a little bit, easier for y'all to pronounce it. But yeah, hello there. I'm Ashster, or just Ash. I'm a big fan of the BumbleKast. Been listening for a good while now, and I have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@Ashster_sunshine. It's just Ashster, like Ashster exclamation points. And I also have a Twitter, which I use a bunch at Ashster64. And well, I'm here to let's talk a bit. I'm really excited. Holy crap, Mom, I made it. I'm in the BumbleKast.
Welcome to the show. I apologize that it's kind of weird this time because I sound like I'm doing some deep radio voice, and I'm really not. I'm trying not to be goofy, but we're here. You're here.
It sounds nice.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds nice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Too bad it isn't like a permanent buff, it's temporary.
I know I can probably hit this register with effort normally, but it doesn't sound as natural and oddly not as rich, so that's annoying.
You're inching closer to your Black Doom voice, kind of. You're like in between Ian and Black Doom, more or less.
I tell you what, 2 days ago, I was defaulting to Black Doom. That's what it naturally sounded like. Kyle, we can't record because this.
I kind of wish we could have, but on the one hand, that would have been hilarious. But on the other hand, let's not push it.
No, it was the Black Doom gravel plus like this wet gargle to it. It would have been excruciating for everybody involved. Super gross.
I mean, some people might like it. You never know. But
this is true.
Just take care of yourself, man. The health first.
What brings you to the show, Ash? Why have you graced us with your presence?
Well, man, to be honest, I'm happy to be here just in general. I have a list of topics / questions here, which I don't know if it'll last for the entirety of the show. If we do get to a point where I'm done with the list here, we can just kind of wing it until the time's done. I don't know. But yeah, it's just some topics I thought up. I wanted to ask both you and Kyle about for a while now, and I've actually been saving up questions. Because I've been donating to the Patreon in the lowest tier for at least 7 or 8 months by now. But I sent one question once, and then ever since then I thought, okay, I kind of want to do a guest episode eventually, and I just started saving up questions for that because I thought it would be more fun if I just were able to talk it directly, say them directly to you guys. I don't know, a little bit more natural, I guess. But
man with a plan, I like it.
And so just to start off, I wanted to just point out how much I just admire both of you guys. I mean, Ian, of course, for being kind of the star of the show here. He's the reason the podcast exists. Kyle is too. Kyle's the backbone of the BumbleKast, really. Without Kyle, there is no BumbleKast. But Ian, he writes all these really cool stories. Big fan of your work. You basically made sure I was forced into being a Sonic fan again, so thanks for that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm thankful for the memories. And also, man, for real, I have this poster right here. Here in Brazil, we had the Brazil Game Show, for the last 2 years. Alongside that, we had the Sonic Symphony, right? And during the event, Brazil Game Show is basically a mini E3 here, the biggest one in Latin America. And in 2022, I believe, 2022, they had Takashi Iizuka doing like autographs and stuff, like a meet and greet type of thing. And then last year they had Jun Tsunoe. So I have this poster right here with an autograph from Takashi Iizuka. I have an autograph from Jun Tsunoe. I just need your autograph, man. I know that you see them as kind of like your bosses and stuff. You've been very humble about that. You could say it's the BumbleKast, really, because you're very chill. But man, the impacts you've made, in like, at least for me, I don't know about like other fans, but at least like as far as me being a really huge Sonic fan nowadays, it's a ton of you there. So thanks for that, really.
Oh, thank you very much. And while it would make me extremely nervous, I am totally cool if you want to work out mailing the poster up here. I sign it and I mail it back.
Wow, we can talk about that. That wasn't really in the plan. Just wanted to tell the story.
Well, I don't know when I'm ever going to get to travel to Brazil, so that's the next best thing. I just would be nail biting the entire time, like, please don't get lost in the mail. Please don't get lost in the mail. Please don't get lost in the mail. Panic, 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 panic.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, now I just kind of mentioning it because, like, to me, I see you in like that kind of same level. I know you probably look up to them as well, which is kind of a weird power dynamic here. But in my eyes, man, you changed this franchise, and all your other work too is good. I mean, I haven't read much of it, but from what I've seen, you're a good writer, dude. I trust you to do good work, and I need to get into Dragoon and Claws Making. I actually tried to get into Dragoon, but is that kind of like in development limbo right now, if I got that correctly?
Yeah, we tried to do a webcomic format first, and we were taking it very slowly. Like, just see where the story takes us. And Adam was experimenting with the art style, and we got about 70-ish pages in and realized, one, it isn't visually coherent. It's not consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And two, we were 70 pages in and the story hadn't really advanced anywhere. Lots of great world building. Love what we did with it. Proud of that work. And you can get a free PDF on the comic shop. But it just wasn't the best way to tell the story.
I see. I'll look for it then, just for the sake of reading it. Either way, I tried looking for it like a while back, and I just didn't find that PDF. So I kind of assumed it was deleted off the internet, and we're gonna start again, and nobody can find it. It's lost media now. But nah.
No. It's on the comic shop. It's a free purchase, so to speak, and we've reworked it a fair bit. We have book one is now written. It's done. It's nailed down. I'm not revising it for a fifth time. We have it. And Adam is aggressively working on it right now. He wants to have it wrapped up by this year at latest. As a matter of fact, the day that we are recording this, he was doing a live stream drawing pages for it. So you can like see the process. So if you follow him on his Twitch, which I don't have off the top of my head because I'm bad at this, every now and again you can get like sneak peeks into Dragoon, which is super cool.
Awesome. I'll see if I can. I'll look for it once this is done. Alrighty, let's get into like more of the topics then. Okay, so this is like very messy. I wrote down some ideas, but the questions are not like written down, and they're kind of divided into three sort of like types of questions, but they're not divided in a way that's like, oh, here's this type of question first, this type of question. No, they're just kind of mixed in, like mashed together. They're like, Ian, I admire you and I want advice from you questions. There are just typical Sonic character questions, and then they're just like I guess writing advice questions, which is different from the other stuff. We're gonna get into it. I don't know. I'm just kind of like rambling right now. Let's get into the questions themselves.
No worries.
First off, so something I noticed I don't know how much of that was your work or work of like the rest of the scripting team and Frontiers and all that, but something I really liked about that story was how much you guys humanized Eggman with, the whole Sage story and stuff, and how all the logs played out and his dialogue and stuff, like the things he talked about in those logs. I like that was really cool. And I kind of wanted to know, like, what's your take? Yeah, humanized. whatever. What's your take on like doing more of that? Where would you draw the line? And like Eggman is just cartoonishly evil, and let's keep it like theatrical and kind of just over the top, and he doesn't need to have actual feelings and motivations. And where do you go? No, this might be interesting. Let's cook a bit here. Let's try to do something cool here. Where would you say? I don't know. Just your thoughts on the whole idea of just giving Eggman more of like that depth, I guess, more character depth to Eggman.
It is a tricky balance to maintain because who he is so well established. And because of the nature of the franchise, none of the characters can really grow too far out of what is recognizable for their characterization. It's not just the character, they themselves are individual brands, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So when the team came forward with the story saying Eggman's going to create his AI daughter, the challenge for me was, okay, how does that make sense? Who is Sage as a character? How does she relate to Eggman? How does that dynamic play out? Where does this go? And how do we do it in a way that makes sense for Eggman's character? Because we've seen Eggman with children in other media, artificial and otherwise, usually artificial.
Yeah.
But this was going to be like official, like nailed down for surezies. This is how Eggman would be as a father. So a lot of time and care was put into thinking about that. And I think I know where I would like it to go. I think we rationalized it well enough in the game to establish the pair and where they can start from now. The real challenge will be exploring that in the future with whatever media they show up together in. Because the rationale is there, but now we have to see how it plays out going forward.
It's a kind of a definitive sort of change to the status quo. Like now Eggman has a daughter. That isn't going away.
Right. Now, this doesn't mean Eggman's going to like suddenly turn soft and retire. It's just how does Sage and his relationship with her fit into his usual dynamic? And I think it will work very well, and it will lead to some new fun interactions and character dynamics. But I don't want to speculate too far because, one, bosses probably wouldn't like that, and two, might be spoilery, and three, we don't even know necessarily where they might go, he said, not leading into anything potentially spoiler. I'm going to shut up now before I get myself in trouble.
Carefully.
Yeah, personally, if you ask me, man, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. I really liked it. And in general, I am a decently big fan of the idea of just giving Eggman just a little bit more depth. Of course, just don't turn him into as someone completely irrecognizable. He still has to be Eggman, but I like giving him this sort of stuff. There's actually, and I know you won't be able to watch this, Ian, because you can't mess with fan work. I'm aware. But just maybe Kyle, you could check this out. There's this really good fan, I guess fan biography would be the right word for it. It's on YouTube. I think the guy who made it's Muji Mikey, I think is what he's called. It's like an animatic. It's like this 40-minute long video retelling an interpretation of Eggman's sort of origin story. And it goes very deep. And sometimes it starts off and you think it's sort of like a parody where they're giving him a super sad backstory at first, but then suddenly things from the actual game lore start sneaking in, and suddenly Maria's there, and you get to see Eggman talking about how he felt about Maria as he was growing up, and Gerald, and how he looked up to Gerald. And that was fantastic. So that was some fantastic stuff. I highly recommend that if you're interested. Not for Ian, of course. Sadly, you won't be able to watch this, but I wish you could, because it's some good content. It's some genuinely good content. I don't know how much I could elaborate, but there's this one scene, man. There's this one scene, and that's really late on in the story. That's after he goes to Vietnam. That's a thing.
Okay, that escalated quickly.
It escalates and de-escalates a lot. But then, so he's already kind of old and old-ish. He's kind of fat, and he's starting to become closer to game Eggman as we see him. And gun soldiers knock on his door, and they're I'm still laughing about the Vietnam thing and the Vietnam thing. But They knock on his door and they're like, "We need you for something." So this is actually this matches up with the point in the timeline where Gerald is taken into prison, and they need Eggman to like unlock one of his labs, like right in the middle of like, the desert, so they can bring some of the research material to like his cell and stuff. And they need to, and then there's a password, and the gun soldiers, they don't know what the password is for like opening the door to the lab, and then like they ask Eggman to go there and try to figure it out, and then he starts thinking. He tries Black Doom, Shadow, some stuff from his research, and then he stops. And then he thinks, okay, what if Maria, Maria, door opens. It's seriously like that scene gave me chills, dude. It's really good. But yeah, enough about that. I probably shouldn't be giving you too many stuff from fan content because now you won't be able to use that idea. So sorry for that, Ian.
That's okay. I don't think we would ever be able to reference his time in Nam.
But yeah, no, the other stuff that is some good content too. That is some good. That's the crazy thing about that video, because it switches around between just being like very dark and very realistic, and then suddenly something from like the actual game lore pops in, and it mashes together like incredibly smoothly, and well, it's actually kind of scary. It's really well done. It's some good work.
Now I'm sad we won't get Mike Pollock saying, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
But yeah, going on to the next question/topic then. So Ian, as I mentioned before, I kind of look up to you a little bit. I don't know. I admire you. You're a great dude. I like your stuff. And I, too, want to be a writer in the future. For the record, I'm 18 right now. I just finished high school. And I'm trying to figure out college, but it's a whole complicated thing, especially because I was kind of hoping I'm trying to figure this out. I'm not asking you for career advice necessarily, but I'm kind of planning to do university abroad, like in the US probably, but it's too damn expensive. I will see what I can do and what I can't do. But just sort of in general, I not saying I want your job, because that's fine. I don't want your job. Stay safe here, keep doing your stuff. But I'd love to work more or less on the same field you do. So like a writer for comic books and video games and TV, and you're able to sort of like jump around all these different stuff. You're not just specifically a comic book writer. You work in a few episodes of Sonic Boom. You've worked on the Sonic Frontiers, like the video game and stuff. And you can hop around between types of media so really frequently. And I don't know, I kind of just wanted to ask if you have like any, I guess, advice for breaking into this field. Like, I don't know if college is going to work out, and I was looking into doing dramatic writing or like creative writing to sort of more or less fall into that field. I know you did English, right? You did English, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, my college career was more about discovering myself. It wasn't a lot about the academia, really. I grew up in a very insular community, I guess, and going to college forced me out of my shell in more ways than one. So for me, my college experience was crucial and educational, but in a very personal way. I did major in English because that's what I excelled at, and that was kind of the easy route. Let's not lie. But I did try to utilize it to broaden my horizons at least a little bit, studying different eras of writing, classical writing versus modern fiction writing, the etymology course I took, the history of language and the very origin of the words we use today, which is fascinating. And, all of that gave me new perspectives, which I feel like influenced how I write, if not necessarily affected the skill of it. I don't feel like my particular skill was honed, but I feel like my mindset was cultivated.
Interesting.
Everybody's university or college experience is going to be different, and what you go in looking for may not be what you find ultimately. There are folks who change their majors. There are folks who realize that university just is not for them, and others flourish in it. It really, depends on you, and you need to be open to that change, which is not the kind of steadfast direction most folks want, I realize. But I'm also trying not to say, don't get this singular vision of what you want. And when, life doesn't meet those expectations, you feel like, oh, you failed. It's no. Life is not an easy thing to figure out. So it's good if you do have a plan, if you do have a goal to pursue, by all means, go for it. And if you run into challenges, cool. That allows you to test yourself and overcome them, or even find your limits. But be open to the idea that, you may have to change plans, or you may not get there as fast or in the way that you expected. And that's okay. That's just how it goes. Until the money runs out, then you can panic. You have full, permission to panic on my part. I understand that. As for breaking into the industry, it's really difficult. Freelance writing is kind of a very small pool, and it's a bit of a catch-22. You can't really break in until you know anybody, and you don't know anybody until you break in. I got really lucky with my first lucky break.
I know the story, yeah.
Seized upon it. And that job eventually opened up other doors, because I made a point of working hard and meeting deadlines and being cooperative and flexible and creative where I could be, and just managed to catch the attention of other people at the right time. So what I would recommend for you is, if you wish to write freelance, practice the craft first and foremost. Write for the university paper, write for your own blog, write for any zines that have a topic that you're interested in, short story competition. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're writing is still going to be honing your craft and teaching you how to tell stories. It doesn't really matter if you get picked up or not. You're still going to get that experience and learn how to communicate, how to approach people, how to network. And, also look up various books on how to write things, a comic script versus a movie manuscript versus short fiction versus an article. How they're different disciplines. They need different mindsets into approaching them. And people have written about how they do it, and that might work for you. You might read their instructions and go, that makes no damn sense. I'm going to do it this way. And maybe that works for you. Or maybe you learn, oh, that's why they did it that way. Hello, hubris. And go from there. You have a long road of learning and experience to accumulate. And don't stress out if it doesn't immediately pay dividends, because it may not.
I see. Well, thanks for that. I'll keep that in mind. And speaking of books, you actually segued pretty nicely into my next question. So, as much as I like to both write and consume stories, this goes for not only comic books, but also, again, video games, TV shows, and whatnot. I am a fan of stories and media, and I can get rolled into even a very complex RPG. One of my favorite games is Xenoblade Chronicles, and the whole series. It's so philosophical and complex towards most books I had to read for school. But even then, I personally, ever since childhood, and I kind of think that's sort of my school's fault for making me read books I didn't want to read, and me subconsciously interpreting that as books are boring, I can't read. I got to a point where it's very difficult for me to pick up a book and read. For the last 5 years, every book I had to read for school, I did so through an audiobook, and even then it's very, very difficult for me to stay concentrated and focus on the story. And in reality, I think a lot of that is due to just not finding a story that truly hooked me, or had an easy enough entry barrier as far as language and understandability go. So I kind of wanted to ask you, because I know you've read some books, and you're of course a good writer and stuff. You must know. Do you have any book recommendations, especially for someone who's starting out, maybe someone who likes the kind of story that you write for Sonic, or who likes Japanese stories, JRPGs, all that kind of stuff. The usual video game Sonic fan likes. I kind of want to make the transition into prose, but I just can't.
Prose is tricky to get into, and I'm right there with you with, here are the books you have to read to complete this course. Oh, this is as boring as dirt. Why? Because it's culturally significant. In what era? Why? I don't care.
To who?
I get you.
Not exactly. To
me. We're telling you this is important. Here's the context. Okay, well, it's aged like milk. Thanks. And with that, in retrospect, looking back to my own struggles of getting through curriculum, one way you can approach it, and take this into university, I guess, if you go that route, is if you are hitting kind of a dead end with some of this material, start asking yourself, why? Why is it not resonating with you? What is it about the characters, the word choice, the narrative flow? What is it structurally? What is it thematically that just isn't clicking with you? And investigate that. And then as you're going through it, you're not necessarily trying to engage it on its own terms, but you're approaching it from your own analytical point. And that might spark a little bit of interest in you there. Like if you're getting to the next chapter and you're like, I don't care what happens. But if you're approaching it saying, okay, I know I didn't like it because of these previous chapters. Is this trend going to continue here? That change in perspective might help you get through it. It just might make it even more tedious. I don't know.
No, this sounds cool. I like analyzing stories. I do that a lot, including in my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Ashster Sunshine. You can check it out. I analyze stories there a lot.
There you go. I would readily recommend just about anything by Stephen King. I've enjoyed a lot of his work, a lot of his earlier work more, I would say. And just singularly, I would say his Dark Tower series is one of the more formative works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to read it for funsies, just because, but if you really want to do a comparative analysis, see if you can find the original edition of The Gunslinger, the first book, and then the latest edition of it, because his first approach was to let the story find him. He didn't do any plotting. He didn't do any foredrafting. He just kind of let the mood strike him, man. And if there were turns of phrase that sounded cool or whatever, he put them in there. Does it have to have meaning? No, let it discover its own meaning. And he regrets it to this day. And the latest edition is heavily revised so that it makes sense in the context of all the books that came after. But to me, that open-endedness, that even if it was hollow, the way the certain turns of phrases and hints at possible ideas really hooked me. And it gives it this dreamlike, sometimes nightmare-like feeling, because it is so intangible in places. And I feel that first edition of that first book has a certain kind of magic to it that the rest of the series does not. And I don't know if it's technically good, but it was really engrossing for me.
Okay, but assuming I do read it, which I will try to, which of the editions should I read first? The new one or the old one?
Just for coherence sake, I'd say the newest one. Mm-hmm. See, you'll get foundational material there that will carry on for the rest of the series. Not to color your perspective, but for what everything I liked of the original edition of the first book was all the faults I had with the final book. The final book felt like he was trying to tell a story. He was trying to wrap it up instead of letting the story come naturally. But that's a whole much longer thing to do, and I want you to enjoy it for yourself. Also, book 4 broke my heart. I cannot read that book again. There is literal mental trauma because of that freaking book. I can't go back. You know what? We want to get through all your questions, so I could go on at length, but let's move. That's a good starting point. That's 7 books right there. That's plenty.
Okay, so here's another one. Here's an interesting one, and now finally back to Sonic, I guess. Back when, like, the one question I asked you guys on, like, just the one question I sent into the BumbleKast normally before I decided, no, I want to save them for the guest episode, was back when I asked if there are any characters in stories like Sonic or otherwise that you really like relate to or saw yourself in. And now I kind of want to ask the opposite of that. I'm specifically interested in one character here, but you can also extend that to others if you feel like that's applicable. You might have heard that. I'm pretty sure you've heard of the phrase "write what you know," right? Oh, yeah. Which is basically, like write based on things that you know well in real life and whatnot. And I kind of wanted to ask this. As far as like the new characters and like IDW, which you created and whatnot, or at least helped create, are there any people in your life that inspired them? So like, for example, Tangle, which is the one I'm most interested in, huge Tangle fan. Did you base her off like anyone or anything or any like sort of like, I guess, character trope that really stood out? What gave you the idea to create a character like her, and how did you put the pieces together?
She wasn't inspired by any one person that I can think of. Maybe she bubbled up from something in the subconscious that I haven't processed, but Tangle was designed to be a game character, basically. Someone who would just be cool to run around and have adventures with Sonic. The female cast up to that point, Amy was still, her character was still being kind of solidified, Forces era. Cream is the young understudy type. Rouge is the sultry spy. She's not the go out on fun adventures type. Basically something akin to Tails. Someone who could just go off and do fun, cool things with Sonic. And we had a very small female cast, so it's like, all right, and we make her a girl. And that's about it. Like, basically, how do we make a cool female companion that would fit in the game? And
well, it worked out.
Where she came from. The very, very beginning, she was meant to be inspired by the prototype rabbit and the early concept of
about that. It's true.
Her grabbing with ears, but due to circumstances, we landed on Lemur, and Sega liked it, and a star was born.
Speaking of Tangle, and this is sort of similar to the Eggman question I made earlier. So back in issue 60 something, I don't quite remember, during the like period, something really cool that I liked, like that you did with her character, was the whole thing where she named the new group Diamond Cutters, trying to like make Whisper happy with that, like, oh, this will be cool homage. The thing, Whisper, of course, wasn't very excited about that, to say the least. But I really enjoyed how you wrote that whole, not only that specific moment, but like the repercussions of it, and how once she realized she messed up and she had like that whole moment where she like apologized, and then they all, the whole moment where she cried, and then like the Whisper forgave her and stuff, and it was just like really cool. And I like seeing this, especially because Tangle was initially sort of a character that you don't usually see being so, sad or negative. Her whole thing is being happy and positive and excited about things. Even in the Metal Virus, when everything was going to absolute crap, she was still holding it together and fought till the very end, and with a smile on her face. So I was kind of like curious as to like what was the thought process between deciding to do something a little bit more on the, I guess, emotional side with her. If you think there's more room to grow that. I personally, like, I'm a big fan, as someone who's kind of like that IRL, honestly. Someone who's a little bit too much, sometimes talks a lot, is very energetic, and people, like, I try to be very happy all the time, but then that usually, like, tears away at you sometimes. And people like that can be, sad and anxious and worried and stuff. And I really felt like sort of, how should I put it? Like, I felt that part of me recognized when I read the book. So I was kind of curious if you think there's more potential for doing more stories like that, surrounding specifically Tangle and that stuff. You think is there there's more room to explore there with the character? Or do you think we're in a good spot right now? Where would you draw the line on that? And what also, again, like kind of mixing in with the last question, what gave you the idea to do that specific situation there, where a sincere act of trying to be cool and like, I guess, make your friend happy backfired, and suddenly they're mad at you? Because that's a very specific sort of a social situation that you don't usually see a lot in these kinds of stories. These kinds of stories, like action stories and whatnot, are focused on the adventure and the action. And to do this very specific, like, anxiety-fueled moment where, like, the character just messed up, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really, it really connected with me personally.
I'm glad. For the inspiration of it, number one, Tangle and Whisper as a dynamic was not necessarily ever considered. Tangle and Whisper were both created individually for their own purposes. And when we got the green light to do the mini series, it was like, oh, they actually have a fun chemistry together because they are such an odd couple. And that took off like wildfire in the readership. So I was like, okay, well, we've done it now. We have to see this through, don't we? And this particular bit of friction between them, I felt like was something we were kind of building towards, where they had come together, they had overcome some of their differences, they had reached a certain understanding, and there was a kind of comfort there. And whenever you have an equilibrium, you need to upset it every now and again. It's interesting. It's immediately interesting. But at the same time, I didn't want it to just be cheap drama, because that's way too easy and people see through it. So it was them overcoming like the next hurdle in their particular dynamic, where Tangle has her own personal revelation in herself that she went too far without thinking it through. And Whisper at the same time came to her own personal realization of, why is this bothering her so much? And is she angry at Tangle, or is this her own separate emotion that she's conflating in the wrong way? And it was a moment for the both of them for self-reflection and to grow. It was also, I tried to make it so that nobody was necessarily wrong. Yes, Tangle should have thought it through, but there was no maliciousness in her action. It was purely meant to be supportive. And Whisper, while she is, obviously upset, she has to realize why she is. Who is she taking this anger out on? Is it on the wrong people? And by navigating that, they come to their own personal growth and they come a little bit closer. Also, Lanolin's there. And it just makes for an interesting little character dynamic. I don't know if we need to necessarily return to that anytime soon. It's kind of reached a benchmark. And now it might be good to focus on other characters and other dynamics. But now this is Evan Stanley's lead writer now. She has been for years now. So it's kind of up to her where things are going. But, if I get to contribute again, I'll be touching base with her saying, okay, where are you going with this? If I have this idea, is that going to undercut what you have long term, and work it out between the two of us?
All right. Let me see here. Okay, now to something completely different, because I organized these topics terribly.
Keeps us on our toes.
Exactly. So it's all planned out. All according to plan. I believe Kyle mentioned it like once or twice already, so I was really curious because I was really obsessed with this show maybe 1 or 2 years ago, back in 2020. But Kyle and Ian, did you guys watch the DuckTales reboot?
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
absolutely.
Awesome.
Here's where I would lapse into my Glom Gold impression, but sadly not today.
Let's leave this. Someone, please ask him to do that later in some question in the future when he's better. You would never guess what my favorite character is.
Webby?
Exactly. Of course.
I mean, she's on the top. She's near the top of my list too, for sure. She's fantastic.
And if we're coming off of a question about Tangle, yeah, I am going to assume Webby.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. That's why I said that. Speaking of, imagine an interaction between these two. It's like Tangle and Webby. The man, the whatever room they're in, that wouldn't last.
I think it would cause the singularity. The gravitational pull of their excitement would suck everything in towards them.
Webby would have some kind of harebrained adventure idea, and Tangle would fully endorse it, and off they go.
Yep. Brilliant.
That'd be really cute. That'd be really wholesome. That would be really wholesome. I'd watch / read that for real. So I guess that's about it. I just kind of wanted to check. I'm back in like 2020. Yeah, 2022. I was a bit late to the party, but I just picked it up on Disney Plus. Like I watched the first few episodes back when they were coming. And then I kind of just dropped the show because there were some really long hiatus. But then, like, a while back, I just decided to watch it as someone who enjoys these kinds of, recent animated shows. So, the stuff in channel, so Gravity Falls, watched Amphibia more recently. I love that one. Back when I was doing video essays, I did I think it was like 30 minutes? A 30-minute long video essay about the whole show and why I should watch it. I'm not necessarily proud of it nowadays because my video changed a lot, but it's there, and I am happy I made it because that show is great. Moving on, as someone again completely unrelated, but let's keep you on your toes. As someone who does a lot of running myself in real life, I actually participate in a few competitions, like 10-kilometer, 5-kilometer street races and stuff. Like not like races as in car race, like running, actual street like running. Something I was kind of curious about because it was so. Do you think Sonic would be more of a short distance running guy or a long distance running guy? And on that topic, do you think Sonic has a stamina limit? Do you think there's a point where he just gets tired and can't do it anymore, or can he just keep running forever, indefinitely? There's in Metal Virus, I believe, where he gets exhausted because the virus taking over him and running around to keep the virus away, and he's like, okay, so is this how normal people feel when they run? And I kind of felt that because I do more longer distance running, and it's something I've learned through my journey doing that kind of stuff. Is that 100 meters flat is a completely different sport from anything over 2-3 kilometers, and then a marathon is it's completely different from that too. So I was kind of if Sonic were to do these sports, what do you think he would prefer? The shorter races, the longer races, somewhere? Do you think he would get tired eventually because longer races are more about pacing yourself? Do you think Sonic would prefer to just go fast, or just because they're very different? And assuming Sonic wouldn't, I guess, if there was a competition long enough to accommodate for speed, do you think he would prefer the kind of race where it's long enough for him to pace himself, or just short 100-meter boom? What do you think is closer to his style, in your personal opinion, as someone who wrote for the character?
I think what he would look for the most is the experience. 100-meter dash is a blink and you miss it thing for Sonic. Maybe that's fun for the first couple rounds, especially if he's styling on Eggman. Oh, you got a robot for the 100-meter dash. That's cute. Boom, done. But that, I think he would get bored of that pretty quickly. The longer distance, where he's able to see more sights and travel further, and if it is a sufficiently long enough marathon, a Sonic styled marathon, I think he would enjoy the challenge and the experience more than anything else. It isn't so much about the running per se, it's what he does during that run.
It's the vibes.
Yeah.
Would he get tired eventually, though?
Depends on what would be cool at that part of the story.
Great answer. Moving on to another media unrelated to Sonic question. I'm a huge fan of Pokemon, and in general, the anime, the games. I've been playing the competitive scene. I've been playing the games competitively recently. Yesterday, I just got like top 4 in a local here. I'm pretty happy about that. But either way, you're probably aware of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that came out last year. The year before, actually. The year before, like late 20. Was it? It was late 2020. God, I'm old. It was late 2022, right? I'm not actually old, but
I was about to say, I'm a Gen 1er, buddy. Don't talk to me about old.
But did you get to play that? And if so, do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually feel like I've kind of phased out of Pokemon for the most part. A lot of what kept me interested was the monster design specifically, and the last 2 gens, while there are some notable ones, I just didn't really like most of the critter designs. And it's like, if I don't really feel engaged to go out and catch the new stuff, you lost me.
Fair enough. That's fine. Actually, like, because I was permission to go on a small rant here about the quality.
Your episode, man. Go for it.
So Scarlet and Violet, they're kind of a complicated case of kind of similar to Sonic Frontiers in a way, where it's a really good game, but not necessarily the most polished one. And people have been, of course, the fandom and stuff has been fighting internally about it for a good while now. And yeah, I am personally a big fan of them, especially because and I know that's kind of weird to say, like, oh, I play Pokemon for the story. It's not just that, but I personally really enjoy when Pokemon games try to have an interesting plot with good characters. My favorite generation is Generation 7, Sun and Moon, for that reason. And I feel like that, plus the new open world gameplay and all the new additions, it really kept me hooked in the game. So I would actually just recommend it to you. If you have some free time and you want to play Pokemon again, it's a good time, and it has a genuinely good story. It's one of the good ones in the series.
Actually, completely agree. Sun and Moon was the last one I really went through. Was displeased when I heard some of the changes they made in Ultra Sun and Moon, because I feel like they got it right the first time. And I distinctly remember I hadn't played it in a bit, and I picked it up again on a whim. Don't remember what I was trying to accomplish, but I went back to the shrine. I was like, hey, I'm going to pop over to the alternate world and mess around for a minute. Except I was returning back to the home world, the home dimension. And it's like, I just spent, I don't know how long in the parallel world and didn't even notice. And I know functionally they're the same, but it was still kind of eerie to come back and go, oh, all that interaction was in a different dimension. That's a little creepy weird. I'm actually uncomfortable about this. So
yeah, here's the recommendation. If you ever want to get again, play some of the newer games. Despite being very broken, kind of unfinished games, Scarlet Violet goes highly recommended for me, because it has probably the best characters in the whole series, even, and really good gameplay, because the open world, they actually nailed something that completely messed up. By the way, I agree with your opinions to an extent, maybe not as extremely as you, but then again, I didn't finish the game because I got so frustrated with the story. I did like the half the shrines, the dungeons, like the temples. I did 2 of them, and by now I've seen the finale. It's cool, but I kind of completely lost steam by the halfway point when I realized, oh, so we're just doing the same cutscene again. Weirdly enough, as much as people like to compare the new Pokemon games to Zelda and how much more polished Zelda is and stuff, Pokemon actually got this one right, whereas Zelda didn't, because they have the like sort of open world choose your own path progression, but whenever you're going to different parts of like each of the storylines, the first one you go to, you're gonna get cutscene number 1, and the second one you go to, you're gonna get cutscene 2. So even though you can do them in any order, I think I cut out of it. You're always gonna get a continuous story, and come on, if Pokemon got that right, how didn't Zelda? How the hell Zelda didn't? I don't know. Grammar. I'm not the biggest shipping guy personally. I know you guys get lots of questions about shipping and stuff, but I like, because as an individual, I'm not that much of a. I have trouble understanding. As someone who's still growing up and getting into this stuff, as like becoming an adult and stuff, I still have kind of trouble understanding relationships in general, and that also goes for like fictional stuff. So I am not really too big into shipping. I can enjoy it. Some fan art is cool, cute and stuff, and but it's not really my thing. The reason why I get into franchises and stories and media. If it has good romance, I can get invested into that, but I'm not really I'm not that much of a shipping guy, like one who tries to like push for ships and all that stuff that people on the internet try to do all the time, which is fine. It's cool and it's nice if you enjoy that. It's just not really my thing. So I just wanted to preface it with that, because this is a shipping question, weirdly enough. So again, Tangle fan here. Of course, Whisper and Tangle, they're kind of in a weird sort of, I don't want to say half official because you might get in trouble for confirming or denying that. But I mean, you've sort of hinted at it in some of the previous BumbleKasts, and some of the other people on the staff like openly have pushed for it and are big fans of it. It's kind of in this weird state where it's not canon, but it's clear like a lot of people are really want it to be canon. And I believe and I was listening to one of your older episodes, and like you commented how we wrote like Tangle and Whisper, the miniseries, and their relationship there as a friendship first and foremost, more and then fans got invested into that, and then shipping started, and then that evolved into what we have now. And I just wanted to ask, at what point in writing the story and during like the releases and stuff did you or the rest of the team like realize, oh, there might be something here, we could do when did you catch on to the fact that people were shipping these characters, and you sort of like, from what I can get, sort of started pushing it internally with the whole like the little moments where they blush, or that one background that's painted in a suspicious set of colors? You know what I'm talking about. When did the team catch on to that? When did you start quote unquote pushing for it, I guess, internally?
Well, I kind of take it as a foregone conclusion that if any two characters talk to each other, a ship is going to launch. We had an issue devoted to Sonic and Shadow beating the crap out of each other, and everyone was going, oh, look how much they're flirting. It's like, no, they're not. But okay, if that's what you're building your ship with, yeah, have fun. So a whole miniseries devoted to two characters that have good chemistry, I knew people were going to ship them regardless of how they interacted. I could have had Tangle and Whisper hate each other by issue 4 and swear to never talk to each other again, and people would be signing up for wedding bells. It's inescapable. But the miniseries with them did show that they have a fun chemistry together. They bounce off each other rather well. They make for a good dynamic duo. And with that established, in my mind, if we wanted to go in that direction, I felt, okay, I'm comfortable enough with this growing there because we've laid the groundwork. There is a mutual respect between the two of them. There is a personal connection. A romance, if it were to come about, would make sense. But because of the way Sector prefers to handle romantic relationships in the series, I didn't want to hang my hat on that, because who knows if we would ever be able to fully explore it. Other writers, other artists, they have added their own particular push one way or the other that wasn't necessarily in the script. But I'm also not going to throw them under the bus saying, no, that's not the artistic vision. It's like, I mean, come on. We know where a lot of folks want it to go. But at the same time, you have just as many, I don't know if just as many, you do have a number of folks who want to see like Sonic and Tangle or Silver and Whisper or any number of other pairings. So I don't want to invalidate them either by saying, yes, this is the official, we put a stamp on it. There you go. I think most of the freelancers involved kind of like that idea. I know the previous editors was fine with that. So that gives it that kind of semi-officialness to it, but they are Sega characters now. They are licensed material, and they will be represented as the license holder sees fit. And that's why I'm so gun-shy about, declaring anything official, because it's not up to me, and it may change down the line, and I don't want to be accused of baiting certain fandoms or lying or misdirecting. It's just, it is what it is. And I am happy with them being in a very stable, healthy, friendly relationship. And if you want to construe other stuff from that, I ain't going to correct you either.
Yeah, because personally, I'm not against it becoming a thing officially. Eventually, if it's done well enough and it's well written, because a lot of the fan people make it's genuinely cute. Like I enjoy that. But personally, as I was reading through IDW, and actually, I read through most of it. Like I was kind of behind. I didn't read it as it came out for most of it. I just got up like earlier this year, I think. February, I think. So I read through most of it like in kind of over the span of a few months. And while I was going through it, I was aware of the shipping. I heard Sonic fans, so, these two are kind of a thing, but not really. But then when I read it, I sort of didn't notice it because I was like, okay, no, you're just friends here. It didn't come off to me as it being anything more than that, which is why I was surprised the shipping was so strong until I heard till I listened to that one Fable BumbleKast episode, and then it made sense. Yeah.
Also, to keep in mind that the feedback you're getting within the online community is a small but very vocal sample. There is a larger fan base that isn't necessarily online, and there are other considerations to be had. So that's not to invalidate the online fans, sure, but with anything you consume online, take it with a grain of salt, with a little bit of moderation and consideration.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I believe that's about it. Then if I can't fit in more topics, then I guess we can do the finishing things now, I guess.
It's been fun. Greatly appreciate you coming on the show. So here we are at the tail end. Remind folks, where can they find you online after the show?
As I mentioned before, I have a YouTube channel. It's the channel name is just like Ashster exclamation point, but you can also, I believe it's youtube.com/@Ashster_sunshine. And then I also have a Twitter, which I use a lot. It's @Ashster64. And if you go to my YouTube, you can find lots of media analysis videos. Back in the day, I used to do video essays. Now I'm transitioning into sort of a more like unscripted, just commentary format where I just talk about the media I like and the I have. And so if you're interested in that stuff, I talk about Sonic, I talk about Pokemon, anime, I talk about tons of stuff. I've actually been thinking of branching out into some more diverse topics as well. But if you like chatting and if you like interesting stuff, then hop on, because my channel is still growing, but I'm putting a lot of... I have also started doing live streams over there every Monday at, I believe, 6 p.m. EST. We've been playing through Spark the Electric Jester right now. It's been fun. On hard mode, my butt has been kicked consecutively.
Nice.
Kyle, you got anything here to add at the end? I mean, you've been talking nonstop this whole episode.
Yep. I'm going to shut up now because I'm way too much. Nobody wanted to hear from me.
Sorry, Kyle. I don't know. I should have asked a Kyle.
No,
I did have a Kyle question here. Or like a Kyle and Ian question here, but I just kind of didn't have.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. I'm just
Kyle
here.
said he likes DuckTales. That's enough.
Yep, I do. I enjoy it.
Kyle, if you want to know something really cool, my parents, they don't speak English, but I tend to listen to BumbleKast episodes on my TV, on like the living room TV. Back when I was still going to school, I would come back home and listen to it on the TV because I don't know, it's just easier. Like open YouTube, I lay down on the couch, I open YouTube, and there, BumbleKast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
There you go.
And my parents, who don't speak a drop of English, they recognize your laugh. Your laugh is so iconic.
Well, I mean,
it is
I
iconic.
Appreciate that. I guess so. I guess it has become. I mean, you can hear me coming a mile away.
I have my hashtag knowing smile. We have our hashtag Kyle's laughter.
Yeah, my giggling, my constant giggling. Yes.
Well, thank you to Ash for sponsoring this guest episode of the BumbleKast. If you want one of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the BumbleKast.
See you later.
Bye.
It's a special edition of BumbleKast After Dark.
How are you feeling otherwise?
Loads better.
Okay,
I
good.
think I finally turned the corner today. Yesterday was a little dicey, but today is like, yeah, I feel like I'm on the upswing.
Okay, good.
As long as I don't push it too hard.
Alrighty, well, that's good. You're making me feel like I'm too high-pitched. There is the opposite of a helium balloon, Thievius. Like where if you inhale it, it actually gets deeper, your voice gets deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what it is. I know it'll kill you faster than helium, I think. Let's see.
Sulfur hexafluoride.
That's, sulfur hexafluoride, yeah. Yeah, I think Mythbusters did something with that. Yeah.
I love that it's both sulfur and hexa something because it makes you sound demonic.
Yeah. Nova, yes. Pure helium is not really great for you, no. You probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't, like, be shotgunning it every day.
Oh, because helium binds with hemoglobin the same as oxygen does.
Yeah. Helium addiction. We'll figure something out. We got minis in the can. We can get some more minis in the can, editing-wise, actually. Dawson just very kindly edited his own minis, like all of them.
Oh,
all three of them.
All right.
Like he just went and did he did the song, and then he did all of the whole rest of the mini too. It's like, all right. You know what? If you want to do it yourself, fine. I'll give you the stuff. You can just do it. You've been listening to the BumbleKast, a co-production of Bumble King Comics and the KNGI Network. Original theme music composed by Ken Coda Snyder. Remixed intro by T-Lopes. Find out more information, along with podcast feeder links, MP3 downloads, and more at bumbleking.com and kngi.org.
Your English is impeccable. I wouldn't know it wasn't your first language unless you didn't say so.
It's weird. It wasn't actually. I don't have that much formal training. It's weird. I just kind of learned English. Starting from an early age, I played lots of video games, and back in the day. Nowadays, we started getting more dubs and translations recently, but back in the early 2010s, especially Nintendo games are only ever in, like, I believe within the last 3 years. So I started learning a lot of English from that. And then right after that, I got into YouTube. So I watch a lot of, YouTube creators that speak in English. And I did do some English. I did take an English course back when it was like 9 or 10. And then that lasted from like 2016 all the way into 2020. Which was too short considering it's supposed to be like a 10-year course. I did it in like 4. Because I skipped like a ton of classes because, even then I was just kind of way better than what was expected of me. I really don't know how I did it.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of like people from Central and South America and also in Europe who didn't like learn English officially, but they picked it up and learned a lot of it from like the imported media. So, like our shows and stuff that you guys get, like the American stuff. So
there's also
your pronunciation, your vernacular, it's excellent. Bravo.
Yep.
Thanks. I put a lot of effort into it. There's actually also the fact that media, like where it comes from aside, usually the biggest portion of like the fan base and the people talking about media tends to be like in the English internet, either because whatever media we're talking about is just bigger in North America, or because of other people like me through that media, and then also talk about it in English because English is kind of the language of the internet, really. So especially things like Sonic. I mean, there is a fan base. So I follow like one or two creators around here. I met a few of them like back in the Sonic Symphony. It was pretty fun. But the large majority of people who are into Sonic, of people who are into so what's another big thing I enjoy? JRPGs. Most JRPGs aren't even in Portuguese. So Xenoblade Chronicles, man, there's got to be like less than 1,000 Xenoblade fans in Brazil or something. I don't know. Just a rough estimation here. So if I wanted to talk about Xenoblade, the only option I had was just, American internet, or I guess English-speaking internet as a whole.